So you need to learn the basics first before you jump into the systemic system. So fluids and electrolytes are essential component of the human body. The homeostasis of fluid in healthy human body is remarkably constant. The regulation is complex and essential for optimal functioning of every organ system. During illness, the balance is lost, leading to deterioration and complication. So what do you understand? I have read out the first slide. Can anyone just elaborate or tell me what have you understood from this slide? What is fluid and what is electrolyte? Name one or more of the electrolytes. Anyone? Sodium, potassium. So are sodium and potassium important for our body? Important. Why? So electrolytes are important for optimal functioning of the human body. So what is meant by these lines might appear very difficult, but these are very simple if you just try to understand them. So fluid matlab what? Fluid means what? What are the fluids present in our body? RBC is not fluid. Okay. So if fluids and electrolytes are not present in the body, our body is not going to function normally. Okay. And what is homeostasis? What do you mean by homeostasis? It is a balance in the body, the normal balance. If that balance is broken, body is not going to function normally. Okay. And the way the fluids and electrolytes are regulated in our body to maintain the normal functioning is a very complicated process which we are not aware of. Even the regular functions which are very normal for us will be hampered if the fluid and electrolyte balance is getting lost. Okay. There will be two classes on fluid and electrolytes. This is the first basic class. In the next class, there will be the derangements will be taught. When there is derangement in the fluid and electrolyte balance, what problems happen in the body. So during any illness, this balance will be lost and there will be some deteriorations and complications. Okay. So just see the picture. This is the fluid distribution. The water component in the body that actually varies with the age. When it is the early fetal life, water is about 90% of the body weight. So you can see this picture. It's around 90% of the body weight. Now as the baby comes out, in a newborn baby, it is around 75 to 80% of the body weight. Now the baby is growing. Around 1 year, the body water is decreasing to about 60%. And this will remain same till the child attains puberty. Now, in the adult phase, in a male person, total body water is 60%. Okay? See the shaded areas. As the age is increasing, the shaded area is decreasing. In adult male, it is 60%. In adult female, it is 50%. Everything is given in the OPGHAI textbook of pediatrics. You won't have to take anything down. Just go to the hostel after this class or maybe in the evening and read the chapter. Everything is given there. Nothing extra. So we will have to learn about the fluid compartments. So total body fluid is distributed in the extracellular space. This is the extracellular space, okay, this compartment. It is around 20 to 25% of the body weight, and the intracellular fluid, that is 30 to 40% of the body weight. Now, extracellular fluid is divided into the interstitial, that is 15%, and plasma 5%. So, the thing you told, blood or plasma, that is only 5% of the body. So we have so many compartments in the body, and what we are bothered about is the blood loss or the plasma, that is only 5%. We have so many compartments in the body where fluid and electrolytes are distributed. Okay. So intracellular matlab the cells. More amount of cells in the body, more amount of intracellular fluid and electrolytes in the body. So more cells will be present in the person who is having more body mass, the muscular people, the athletes, the bodybuilders, those who have more muscle mass, they have more cells. But those who are having more fat in their body, like the overweight individuals or the obese individuals, they will have less body water. because adipose tissue contains less water. Okay. In the fetus and the newborn, when a baby is born, the extracellular fluid volume is more than the intracellular fluid. Because if you have seen a newborn baby, the baby is so small, the cells are very less in number compared to the adult people. So the intracellular fluid will be less. Their extracellular fluid will be more. Okay. One thing I want to explain, what is interstitial compartment? It might be a little bit confusing for you. Interstitial compartment means the collagen, the matrix. When you learned physiology, you already learned about what is collagen, what is the matrix that actually binds the cells together, that is in between, the in-between space. Even that in-between space which is responsible for the structural integrity, okay, that is also having fluid and electrolytes inside them. We actually try to ignore that space. We don't talk about the interstitium much, but that interstitial space is about 15%. They are reservoir. So when the plasma compartment will get compromised, they are going to help the body. So the interstitial compartment is having 15% of the fluid and electrolytes in the body. Okay. So in the fetus and the newborn, the extracellular fluid volume will be more than the intracellular fluid volume. Now, after the baby is born, there will be postnatal diuresis. This means there will be more and more urine passage. And with the urine, more and more fluids and electrolytes are going to go out from the body. So the extracellular fluid will decrease, and this is the reason why a baby loses weight in the first 7 to 10 days of life. Many mothers get very anxious that they tell at the birth time the weight was this much, but now my baby is losing weight. We check the day of life of the baby and we explain to the mother it's a natural physiological process. The baby will lose weight in the first 7 to 10 days. For preterm babies, it is for a little bit longer time because there is loss of fluid from the body. This is a normal physiological process. But obviously, there is a range. If the weight loss is beyond that range, we will have to, it's a red flag sign. Something might be wrong. Okay. So, continued expansion of ICF volume from cellular growth. As the cells will grow, the intracellular fluid will also grow. And by 1 year, the ratio of ICF and ECF volume will be just like adults. So up to 1 year, there is so much going on inside the body of a baby. In order to reach the adult homeostasis, they are going changes. ICF is increasing, so it's evident from the graph. Just follow the pointer, okay? First of all, extracellular fluid. Just I told you, initially it is high. Then after birth, there is diuresis, slightly the fluid is coming down. Then it is reaching a plateau level, okay? Then coming to intracellular fluid. Intracellular fluid, initially the cells are less. So the ICF volume is less. Then gradually cells are growing, baby is increasing in weight, intracellular fluid is increasing. Then it is reaching a plateau, okay? Then coming to total body water. Initially it was 90%, then 80%, slightly decreasing, then coming to 60%. And see, this is the female, this is the male. So female has less body water in adulthood, that is 50%, and males have 60%. So this is the graph. It might appear a bit complicated, but if you just learn about the concepts, you will be able to understand it. Again, what I told you, high muscle mass in male causes higher ICF volume, and high adipose tissue in female causes lower total body water. Okay. Now we come to the electrolyte composition of body compartment. So in the extracellular fluid, plasma and interstitial fluid, the dominant cation is sodium. Okay. The concentration is 135 to 145 MEq per liter, and we have chloride also, the dominant anion, that is around 104 MEq per liter. Now in the intracellular, means inside the cell. Inside the cell, we have huge amount of potassium, that is around 140 MEq per liter. In the ECF, we have only around 20 potassium, but here it is around 2 potassium in the plasma, but we have 140 MEq per liter, that is about 30 times higher than the ECF. So if a condition happens, that will be taught in the next class, that all the potassium from inside the cell, they are coming to the plasma, the patient might die. This is so much important. It is very important for this huge amount of potassium to remain inside the cell. If they somehow escape from inside the cell to plasma, the patient will die of arrhythmia. You will be taught about hyperkalemia in the next class. So, these topics might sound boring. These are basic sciences. But if you don't know about this, you won't be able to understand the disease conditions. So why is it important? So potassium inside the cell is 30 times than ECF. So if this potassium comes out, there will be a catastrophe. So proteins, organic anions and phosphates are also present in the ICF. Okay. And you should also know that in the plasma we have proteins, albumins, those are important. In the physiology itself, when you learnt about blood, plasma, those were already taught in the first year itself. So this is a pictorial representation of the compartments in plasma. Cations, sodium C140, that is the dominant cation. How much space it is occupying, and very less amount of potassium, around 4, calcium 2.5, magnesium 1.1. Anion, chloride mostly, then bicarb, protein, others and phosphate. And intracellular C, how much space is occupied by potassium. Sodium 13, magnesium 7. Under anions, we have huge amount of phosphates inside the cell, followed by proteins and small amount of bicarb and chloride. Now in homeostasis, most electrolytes are distributed between ECF and ICF, and they are also bound to proteins and tissues. The serum concentrations may not reflect the total body content of a particular electrolyte. So serum sodium and serum potassium can never be a reflection of the total body sodium or potassium. This is also a concept. When we send the laboratory investigations, we always send the serum because that is the only sample we can take, but it can never reflect that how much sodium or potassium is actually present inside the body. Serum potassium, how can it reflect the whole potassium? Because potassium is mostly present inside the cells. We cannot take sample from inside the cell. Okay, so this concept is important, that total body electrolyte is not reflected in the serum always. Okay. Now, you will have to understand, you were taught in life science or in physiology about osmosis. You learnt about a semi-permeable membrane separating two fluids, and electrolytes, the fluid is going from one compartment to other. You were taught these things in physiology. So it's just like that these ions like sodium, potassium and the whatever ion which were taught, bicarb, phosphates, chlorides, they permeability to ion varies in each and every organ. For example, brain doesn't allow ions to enter it because it is such a vital organ. If they are allowing each and every ion to enter inside it, brain will not able to function. So, brain has the least permeability. That is the blood-brain barrier. That is a very important system. They don't allow ions to enter easily. Okay. But liver is most permeable. Liver gives passage to most of the ions. But water is the easiest thing. Water readily crosses the cell membranes to achieve osmotic equilibrium between the two compartments. That is the ECF, ICF. This balance and appropriate distribution of fluid is maintained by, this was also taught. Just remember the diagram given in the physiology book. These three forces you were given as a short, it was given as a short note, like colloidal oncotic pressure, membrane permeability, hydrostatic pressure. These used to regulate the amount of fluids entering in each compartment. Okay, so colloidal osmotic pressure is determined by the plasma proteins, albumins. Okay. Now we come to the water balance. What is water balance? Balance means input minus output. Okay, how much fluids we are taking and how much fluid is going out from our body, the minus subtraction gives rise to the balance in the body. That is input. Input means water intake. Fluid intake is around 60%, the amount of food we take, water we take throughout the day. That is the fluid, 60%. And food is 30%. And this is the water that actually is produced in the body from the metabolic processes, water of oxidation. That is around 10%. And output is, and this water intake is regulated by the osmoreceptor in the hypothalamus. This you also know, physiology, it was mentioned in physiology. So where are the osmoreceptors present in our body? Hypothalamus. So hypothalamus will regulate thirst, and according to the thirst, water intake will be regulated. And output is in the form of urine. Urine is 60%, stool is 8%, sweat 4%. So urine is, why urine is formed in the body? Tell me. People might have survived without passing urine. What is the need for urine production in the body? There would have been no need of toilets at all. Why do we need it? Tell me. Anyone volunteer, just think about it. Yes, the waste product from the body needs to go out. So we cannot keep everything in our body. So there are many fluids and electrolytes which we need to excrete from the body. So what is happening? The urine production is directly proportional to the amount of solutes in the body which my body wants to excrete. So urine is not only water, it is having potassium, it is having electrolytes. So the obligate urine output is directly proportional to the amount of solutes which are needed to be excreted from the body. Okay? Every function has a purpose. Then stool, sweat. Sweating is, why does it happen? With the sweat, some amount of fluid and electrolytes are lost from the body. Sweat contains what? Is it salty or bitter or sour? What is the taste of sweat? Salty. So it contains what? Sodium. It has been found that around 35 to 65 MEq of sodium is present in per liter of sweat. But in the, what happens in a hot and humid environment, no, in a hot environment, a dry environment, a person is sweating more and more. So the output will be more. So in the summer seasons, we ask the patients to drink more and more amount of fluids. Not only plain water, we ask them to have ORS because electrolyte is also getting lost. So this is the advice we give. We are giving the advice because this is the basic physiology. Then we have the insensible loss. Insensible loss is 28%. There is evaporation of fluid from the skin as well as the lungs. And sweat loss is the sensible water loss. And sweat is responsible for thermoregulation of the patient. So the last line, balance of water intake and losses maintains normal plasma osmolality. Only water intake and urinary losses can be regulated. So the water loss is regulated by antidiuretic hormone from posterior pituitary. Okay. So the same thing, water input, fluid, food, endogenous oxidation, water output, urine loss, stool, sweat, insensible loss. Now this also you know, you might have forgotten, it's a little bit tricky, osmolality and osmolarity. So R and L makes the difference. So what is osmolarity? R means number of osmoles of solute per unit volume of the solution, means osmoles per liter, volume. Just remember volume, osmoles per liter is osmolarity. And osmolality, L means solute per unit weight of solvent, means osmoles per kg. So the mass is important. Here volume is important, here mass is important. Why? Because when the temperature changes, volume can change, but mass remains same. This is physics and chemistry together. You were taught during the joint entrance examination. These were given as MCQs then also, the larity and lality. Okay. So mass remains same. So plasma osmolality is important. This is a calculation. Okay, this is given in exams. In MCQs, this you will have to remember this formula. That is 2 sodium plus potassium plus glucose in milligram per dl divided by 18 plus BUN milligram per dl divided by 2.8. ठीक है? Normal plasma osmolality is 285 to 295 milliosmol per kg. So what happens, our body regulation is such, bodies want to maintain the osmolality in 1 to 2% of the normal range to maintain the homeostasis. If it exceeds this 1 to 2% range, if it becomes low or if it becomes high, the patient might die. This is so important. We actually don't understand the importance many times, but this osmolality is so important that this should be tightly controlled in the body. Now, what is osmolar gap? Osmolar gap is the actually osmolality can be measured directly by osmometers. Those are some sophisticated machines scientists use to measure the osmolality in the body, and indirect measurement is done by this formula. So it has been found that the difference between these two measured and calculated is 10 milliosmol per kg. This is normal, but if it increases, there will be increased osmolar gap, and I will think some unmeasured osmoles are increasing. Plasma osmolality will increase if there is increase in sodium, increase in potassium, increase in glucose, increase in blood urea nitrogen. If I calculate the osmolality of a person by this formula, but still I am finding the value is coming more, so I will understand some other osmoles are present in the body which are not present in this equation. So those are the unmeasured osmoles. Okay. Like it occurs in some poisoning situations, like ethylene glycol poisoning. Okay, there is no ethylene glycol in this equation, but if those are present inside the body, the osmolality will shoot. Now, tonicity. Tonicity is what? You know, we call a fluid hypertonic, isotonic, hypotonic. Okay, but you should know what is tonicity. Tonicity is also called effective osmolality. The situation of tonicity is like there are two fluid compartments separated by semi-permeable membrane. Simple, just remember that diagram. There are two solutions separated by a semi-permeable membrane. Water is going on both sides. Now, whether the electrolytes are passing or not. So, it is affected by the sodium and the potassium concentration of a fluid. So, normal saline, that is isotonic. Okay, 154 MEq per sodium chloride, that is isotonic. But if you talk about 3% NaCl hypertonic saline, that is hypertonic. If you talk about N/2 saline, that is hypotonic. So it is all about the sodium and the chloride, sodium, chloride, potassium electrolyte levels. The tonicity is determined by that. It is influenced only by the solutes which are unable to cross a semi-permeable membrane separating two solutions. It is affected by sodium and potassium concentration. But it is this urea, blood urea nitrogen, and glucose, they affect the osmolality but not the tonicity. So osmolality and tonicity are not the same things. You will ask me, those things are present in the equation about osmolality, but why are they not affecting tonicity? So tonicity is about what? The electrolytes or the substances which are not able to cross the membrane. But you know, urea crosses the membranes. So that's why it is not determining tonicity. And dextrose, whenever it comes into the blood, it breaks down very rapidly. So it is no longer present in the blood, it is metabolized very rapidly, except in patients who are having uncontrolled diabetes. They have huge amount of glucose in their blood, and that's why that glucose can affect the tonicity. But in normal people, whatever amount of glucose is present in our blood, that is quickly metabolized. So urea and dextrose are not present in the equation. Hypertonic fluid has high osmolality, but high osmolality solution may or may not be hypertonic. This is a one-liner statement. It is important for MCQs. So hypertonic means high osmolality, but the reverse is not true. IV fluid containing only glucose, for example 10% dextrose or 5% dextrose, has 100% free water, मतलब electrolyte free water, only water, H2O. Okay. Half NS has 50% free water. Half NS means what? The half of the fluid is containing sodium. Okay. Now, normal saline, there is no free water for normonatremic children. Each and every water molecule is having sodium or chloride inside it. এগুলো খুব easily বলা হচ্ছে. The physics and chemistry is a bit complicated. You people are going to be doctors. Don't think about physics and chemistry too much. Just for the in order to memorize and in order to build some concept, just remember like that. Okay. So this is a diagram, just follow the pointer, okay. So this is about the regulation of sodium and water balance. So whenever there is any fluid loss from the body, what happens? There will be high osmolality, and this osmolality, when it is becoming high, like it is exceeding 285 to 295 range, it will stimulate the osmoreceptors, which are present in the hypothalamus. So osmoreceptor will tell the body that you need to be thirsty. So thirst will be stimulated, and water intake, the patient will intake more and more water, and that will reduce the osmolality. Understood? This is a regulatory mechanism. And then another mechanism is what? Here there is a hypothalamus, and this is the posterior pituitary. Antidiuretic hormone is getting secreted, and that will cause free water reabsorption in the distal tubules and the collecting ducts. Okay. So this will also conserve water in the body, and that will restore the blood volume. Follow this one. Decrease in the blood volume, there will be decrease in the renal blood flow, and that will decrease the glomerular filtration rate. So less amount of urine. So less amount of urine means restored blood volume. Then this is another pathway, very important, the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone pathway. Okay. So what is happening? The renin is getting secreted because of decrease in renal blood flow. The angiotensin 1 is getting converted to angiotensin. No, renin is converting angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. Then 1 is converted to 2 by angiotensin converting enzyme, and angiotensin 2 is releasing aldosterone from the adrenal, and that is causing sodium and water retention in the body. Understood? Okay. So what is the daily electrolyte requirement? Daily we should have sodium around 3 MEq per kg body weight. Okay. And daily potassium requirement is 2 MEq per kg body weight. Chloride is around 2 MEq, and daily glucose we should have 5 gram per kg. Okay. Now I think you already know about the Holiday-Segar guideline, that is the maintenance fluid requirement. I am going to make you understand it. This Holiday and Segar, they were two scientists. They researched a lot about how much fluid a human being needs on a daily basis, means the maintenance fluid. This guideline was postulated in the year of 1957, and what they were finding out, what is the fluid and electrolyte composition of cow's milk, human milk, and they were trying to find out how much electrolyte we need to administer to the patient or a normal of healthy children. This is the important point. This is the maintenance fluid requirement in healthy children. But you will ask me, but we give fluids to sick children, then why do we need this equation anyway? Okay. This Holiday-Segar guideline, they actually found out how much electrolyte free water we should give to any person. Electrolyte free water, and here comes the formula. So whenever, depending on the disease conditions, we will have to modify this equation. This is the basic thing. This is the basic fluid we require each and every day in healthy people, in sick people. When a person is sick, depending on the disease condition, we will have to decide, should we give less, should we give this amount, or should we give more amount. After this slide, that slide I will discuss about it. So let us learn about the normal children. So 0 to 10 kg, it is 100 ml per kg. then 10 to 20 kg, that 1000 ml plus 50 ml per kg for above each 10 kgs. Then just the calorie calculation you learnt in nutrition. Then more than 20 kg, it will be 1500 ml plus 20 ml per kg for each kg above 20 milligram. And there is another calculation around per hour of fluid, that is 4 ml per kg per hour, then 2 ml per kg for each kg above 10 kg, then 1 ml per kg for each kg above 20 kg. In smaller children, it has been found that 6 to 15 kg body weight children, we should give fluid volume according to body surface area. 1400 to 1500 ml per meter square body surface area, because it has been found in this small this low weight babies, if we follow the weight based formulas, it will amount to around 30 to 60% more fluid administration. So we should stick to body surface area in the smaller children. Now what fluids should we give? As up to 28 days, a baby is called a newborn. So newborn has what their kidneys are very immature. So they just cannot handle the sodium we can handle. So we will have to give less amount of sodium to them. So in the first 28 days, we actually give hypotonic solutions. Like N/5, we give that solution to them. So after 28 days up to 18 years or adults, we always give isotonic fluid. What is isotonic fluid? Normal saline. And we also give balanced salt solutions. What do you mean by balanced salt solutions? They have composition equivalent to our plasma. Okay, and they don't have extra amount of chloride. If you give more amount of normal saline, that will result in hyperchloremic metabolic acidosis. So we need to stick to, initially we are giving NS, then we monitor the electrolytes. When we see the chlorides are going up, we will have to give Ringer lactate, or there is another solution called plasma light. Okay, and no, we cannot thrive on dextrose alone, we need electrolyte. So we will have to add potassium chloride also. So how much amount of potassium chloride? Just easily remember the thing we follow, that is 100:1 kcal. 100:1 kcal means each 100 ml of fluid will contain 1 ml of kcal. Okay, there are MEQ formulas given in the book. It might be a little bit like 20 MEQ per liter. Okay. If we administer isotonic fluid, it will avoid moderate severe hyponatremia. If we give isotonic fluid, hyponatremia, hypernatremia will be less likely. Okay, and hemolysis will also not occur. Now you tell me, why will hemolysis occur if we give fluids other than isotonic? What is the physiology behind it? How will hemolysis occur? Hemolysis will occur in isotonic fluid or hypotonic fluid or hypertonic. Tell me. তিনটে অপশনের মধ্যে একটা চুজ কর। ধর আমি ওই you should remember the diagram. There is a container, we are pouring water and there is a cell inside it. We are pouring more amount of salt and salt. Yes. Yes. So if we put a cell in a hypertonic solution, what will happen? Hypotonic solution, more and more water will go inside the cell and the cell will burst. ঠিক আছে? So what is happening? But the exceptions, what I talked about, we should think about whether we should give isotonic fluid or not in case of newborn, neurosurgical patient, heart disease, liver disease, AKI, CKD, diabetes insipidus, diarrhea with severe dehydration, bird and malignancy. এগুলো একটু পরপর বলতে হচ্ছে। সবার ক্ষেত্রেই আমি আইসোটোনিকই দেব, কিন্তু হলিডে সেগারটা আমি মেনটেন করবো কিনা আমাকে পেশেন্ট দেখে বুঝতে হবে। ঠিক আছে? কেন? Because newborns we give hypotonic, okay, but neurosurgical patient we many times we go for fluid restriction. Heart disease also, liver disease, AKI, CKD, diabetes insipidus, they need more fluids because they are having loss of fluid from the body, free water from body. Diarrhea with severe dehydration, only maintenance fluid will not help, we will have to give more fluids. Okay, same for burn, and malignancy can give rise to many complications. Depending on the complications they are leading to, we will have to modify the fluid calculation. Okay, So maintenance fluid prescription should be individualized. The amount of maintenance fluid one patient is requiring may not be the same for another patient. So there is an individualization. So whenever we are giving IV fluid to any child, we will have to monitor daily body weight, the intake output chart, and the clinically we will have to see whether the child appears edematous. If the child appears edematous, we will think there is some fluid overload in the body, we will have to reduce the fluid volume. So, and also check the electrolytes. And you should know only fluid is giving only 20% of the daily calories. So, we cannot keep a sick patient on fluids forever. So, we will try to give enteral fluid and nutritional establishment. As early as possible, we should switch over from parenteral to enteral route. So, this is a chart from OP Ghai textbook. I am just reading it out. So, the same thing, conditions requiring change in daily maintenance fluid volume. So, maintenance therapy should be less in post-operative children. Usually, it's been found in post-operative children, they have fluid retention in their body. So, we will have to check first and give less, a little bit less, not 20%. We can go to 80%, 70% depending on the child's condition. Then hospitalized with brain or lung disease like meningitis, encephalitis, bronchiolitis, pneumonia. Then comatose patients. Okay, comatose patients may have cerebral edema. So if you give more fluid, then patient may deteriorate. Hypothermia. Hypothermia means there is less amount of insensible water loss. So output is less. So we should modify the input. Hypothyroidism, they have more fluid retention in their body. Oliguria, anuria, highly humid atmosphere, humidified ventilator circuits. These are not absolute truths. For the sake of writing a textbook, these things are given. But each and every patient is individualized. You cannot restrict fluid in each and every patient of coma or hypothyroidism or each and every patient of bronchiolitis or pneumonia. First, see the patient. It might be that a patient of bronchiolitis is having so much of respiratory tachypnea. They are losing fluid from the body. We will have to think first whether we should restrict or give normal amount or increase. So again, this is the basic science. This will be followed by clinics. Then you should prescribe. Okay. Increased maintenance therapy in fever. So in a patient having fever, we ask them to take fluids, ORS khao. We prescribe them. Increased activity, fever, increased skin loss, burns, sweating, tachypnea, tachycardia, dry environment, hyperventilation, capillary leak, third spacing of fluid, extremely low birth weight baby because they are having insensible water losses more in them, use of heaters, phototherapy units, polyuria, surgical drains. Again, these options are quite boring, I understand it. But if you are given, these charts are important for MCQs. You might not be given to write it in the theory paper, but when you will be solving MCQs for NEET PG, they will just give 4 options. So in that scenario, you will have to learn the concept. If you are having the concept clear, you will be able to take the right answer. Deficit therapy. So when all the fluid loss, suppose a patient is having diarrhea, so all the fluid loss should be replaced to maintain euvolemia within 24 hours. If there is features of shock, compensated shock or severe dehydration, rapidly infuse isotonic fluids to restore the intravascular volume. So what is the fluid of choice? Normal saline or Ringer lactate. Okay. Amount 20 ml per kg body weight bolus should be given. Again, we will assess the patient. Depending on the patient's condition, we can repeat bolus up to 3 fluid boluses. How to administer? Again, each bolus dose is given over 10 to 30 minutes. This is a textbook thing. Sometimes if the patient is too bad, we give it over 5 minutes also. Okay. 10 to 30 minutes via wide bore IV cannula or intraosseous needles. Before giving bolus, we will have to see the condition of the patient. If the patient is having protein energy malnutrition or the patient is in heart failure or having AKI or having decompensated liver failure, we can't give too much boluses. The patient will die instantly. So again, basic science followed by clinics, then you will prescribe. Okay. Then what is happening? Just imagine a child having diarrhea, the most common scenario, the baby is just vomiting and passing stool like anything, huge amount of fluid is getting lost from the body. So the weight of the child will decrease. If somehow we have the pre-illness weight, just when the baby is coming, hurriedly, first is airway breathing circulation, we put an IV cannula and we see where the child's airway is patent, the child is breathing normally, and we put an IV cannula, start the drip, take the weight, and we calculate the weight has decreased or not. Depending upon how much weight the child has lost, we will calculate how much fluid we are going to give. So what this is the calculated or the observed volume loss. That is, for each percentage of weight loss, we will give 10 ml per kg of fluid. Plus daily maintenance fluid as per Holiday Sagar. Along with it, for each large volume watery diarrhea, we will give 10 ml per kg of fluid. And for one bout of emesis, one episode of vomiting, we will give 2 ml per kg of fluid. This is the way we will have to replace. It's not about only hanging a saline bottle. We will have to calculate it. It's a continuous process. Enteral route, that is ORS, is the most preferred and safest route if accessible, feasible. And IV solution, normal saline balanced salt, that I already mentioned. This is the chart you have already learnt in ComMed, I think. That is no dehydration, some dehydration, severe dehydration. This is asked in the exams very frequently. So no dehydration, the decrease in body weight is less than 5% and less than 3% in infants and older children. Here 5 to 10, 3 to 6. This is more than 10 to 15, more than 6 to 9%. Mental status, normal, irritable, lethargic to comatose. Thirst, normal, increased, unable to drink. Skin color and elasticity or turgor, normal, cool, pale, mild delay. Here it is cold, mottled, tenting. Then sunken eyes, normal. Sunken eyes in some dehydration, very sunken eyes in severe dehydration. Mucous membrane, normal, dry, very dry. Fontanelle, what is fontanelle? দেখাও নিজের মাথায়, তোমার আছে ফন্টানেলে? নেই তো, বাচ্চাদের থাকে, ঠিক আছে। তাহলে বাচ্চাদের ক্ষেত্রে ফন্টানেলে হচ্ছে সানকেন হবে, সিভিয়ার ডিহাইড্রেশন। পালস রেট নর্মাল, স্লাইটলি ইনক্রিজড, ট্যাকিকার্ডিয়া। ক্যাপিলারি রিফিল, ক্যাপিলারি রিফিল কিভাবে দেখে? পাশের জনের করে দেখো দেখি একজনের ক্যাপিলারি রিফিল, ক্লাস হয়েছে তো, কিভাবে দেখে বলো? হ্যাঁ, ব্ল্যাঞ্চ করতে হবে। কোন জায়গায় করবে? ওটা পেরিফেরাল। সেন্ট্রালটা কোথায় করে? না, সেন্ট্রাল করে স্টারনামের উপরে, ছোট বেবিদের ওইখানে করে, ঠিক আছে। তো ইট উইল বি মোর দেন 4 seconds. ব্লাড প্রেশার নর্মাল, নর্মাল, নর্মাল or low. Urine output slightly decreased, decreased, oliguria or anuria. Now this chart is very complicated. Even I am unable to understand this chart completely. Okay, just remember the easy points. What is it? Whenever by any route fluids or electrolytes are getting lost from the body, we will have to understand from which route the fluids and electrolytes are getting lost, and we will have to replace it accordingly. So fluid can be lost from the stomach, gastric. These are important in the surgical patients. Okay, gastric, small intestine, colon, pancreas. Then diarrhea is very common. We give sodium, potassium, chloride, bicarb, and we give ORS. ORS is having that amount of sodium, potassium, chloride that is required for a patient who is having diarrhea, because মানে এমন ভাবেই বানানো হয় যে ডায়রিয়াতে যেগুলো লস হয় সেগুলো ওআরএস এ দেওয়া থাকে, এইভাবে বানানো হয়। বার্ন পেশেন্টের প্রচুর ফ্লুইড লস হয়, কারণ যেহেতু দ্য এপিডার্মিস ইজ গেটিং বার্ন না, হিউজ অ্যামাউন্ট অফ ইনসেন্সিবল ওয়াটার লস ইজ অকারিং, সো উই গিভ এনএস। অ্যান্ড বার্নসেরও একটা ফর্মুলা আছে, ফ্লুইড লসেস আর ইউজুয়ালি এস্টিমেটেড অ্যাজ 4 ml per kg পার্সেন্টেজ বডি সারফেস। বার্নের বডি সারফেস কতটা বার্ন হয়েছে একটা রুল আছে, সেই রুলটার নাম কেউ বলতে পারবি? ঠিক আছে, ভেরি গুড। তো according to that we will calculate the percentage body surface area, and according to it 4 ml per kg দিতে হবে। সেটা কি করে? half the volume is administered over 8 hours and the remaining over the next 16 hours. আর protein loss in burns may be estimated as 3 to 5 gram per dl. This should be replaced by enteral or parenteral nutrition to avoid hypoalbuminemia or accelerated catabolism. এটা মানে কি, একটা মানুষের যদি বার্ন হয়, ফ্লুইডসও লস হচ্ছে, প্রোটিনসও লস হচ্ছে, প্রথম দিন তো প্রোটিন দেবো না, প্রথমে পেশেন্টটাকে বাঁচাবো ফ্লুইড টুইড দিয়ে, ঠিক আছে, একসাথে প্রচুর ফ্লুইড দেওয়া যাচ্ছে না, দেখ 8 আওয়ার্স 16 আওয়ার্স এমনি স্লো দিতে হচ্ছে, হুট করে দিলে মরে যাবে, ঠিক আছে, তাহলে এগুলো মনে রাখতে হবে। আর এখানে গ্যাস্ট্রিক হলে পরে এখানে সব জায়গায় দেখ হাফ এনএস কথা লেখা আছে, কিন্তু প্র্যাকটিক্যালি ইন প্র্যাকটিস উই অলওয়েজ গিভ আইসোটোনিক ফ্লুইডস, ঠিক আছে, এটা হয়তো ফর টেক্সট বুক সেক হয়তো যখন উনি লিখেছেন কিছু রিসার্চ পেপারে হয়তো উনি দেখেছেন এটা, বাট আমরা ক্লিনিশিয়ানরা usually always we stick to isotonic fluid because hypotonic fluid এ অনেক side effects হতে পারে, the fluid electrolyte balance will be lost in the body, so we usually never take risk of giving hypotonic. Okay, always stick to isotonic, but if you are given in MCQ, stick to this table because these are standard textbooks. Okay, but recent papers are coming up and recent studies have established that we will have to give isotonic. Along with it, we are giving the electrolytes, potassium. And why bicarb? Bicarb is given in case of, I don't know, we have never given bicarb in fluid. I think it is given in the surgical patients, small intestine or colon. For example, patients who are having colostomy bags put or some surgical drains put, they are losing those fluids from the body. They will need bicarb. So that is for the adult people. I really don't know much about adult ITU or adult fluid electrolytes. This much I know, that's why I have taken the class. Now this is a self-evaluation, 3 questions. Okay, the last person, you will answer this question. A fetus has a higher body water content than a child, false or true? Okay, true. What percentage? Then potassium is the predominant cation in extracellular fluid, true or false? So which one is the predominant cation? Sodium, ঠিক আছে। Then excess ADH secretion occurs in response to increased osmolality in diabetes insipidus, true or false? True, true কি করে আর false কি করে বলো? কারণ ডায়াবেটিস ইনসিপিডাসে তোমার তো পলিইউরিয়া হচ্ছে না, শরীর থেকে অনেক ফ্রি ওয়াটার লস হয়ে যাচ্ছে, আর ডায়াবেটিস ইনসিপিডাস একটা কন্ডিশন যেখানে এডিএইচ সিক্রিশনের সমস্যা হয়, এক্সেস হয় না, এডিএইচ সিক্রিশ অ্যান্টি ডায়োরেসিস হরমোন কমে যাচ্ছে, তো ডায়োরেসিস হচ্ছে, তো ডায়োরেসিস হলে ফ্রি ওয়াটারও বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছে, ইলেকট্রোলাইটও বেরিয়ে, ফ্রি ওয়াটার বেশি বেরোচ্ছে, ঠিক আছে, অসমোলালিটি হয়তো বাড়বে শরীরে কারণ জল বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছে, ফ্রি ওয়াটার বেরিয়ে যাচ্ছে, কিন্তু এই এক্সেস কথাটাতেই ওরা ভুলটা দিয়েছে, ঠিক আছে, তাহলে ফলস।